everybody. Thank you for coming to our reading. Tonight, all of the readers are from the poetry workshop, Supposing Eyes. The workshop is sponsored by Kelly Writers House at the University of Pennsylvania. It was founded in 1999. So we're about to head over to our 25th year soon. Anyway, thank you for watching, all of us. Thank you, Kelly Writers House, for sponsoring us for this reading and in general. So I'm going to be reading first. My name is Valerie Loveland. I'm reading a series of poems based on a Saturday Night Live skit about a haunted hotel elevator. And it includes a character named David S. Pumpkins. Doesn't matter if you've seen the skit. All you really need to know is it's about a haunted hotel. The elevator operator at the haunted hotel. You can't work at a hotel if you don't wear a pillbox hat. We trust he is an expert at his job because of his hat, his spotless gloves, and his sinister accent. What kinds of pills are inside his pillbox? Amphetamines. I know because he works the night shift, and also because those are the pills I would keep in my own pillbox hat if I wore one. He is the only one in the hotel who has seen every floor. The hotel gets more haunted as the elevator ascends, and its cables start to creak like they're made of leather. I hoped he would handle the elevator like a horse he brushes and rides, but instead he treats it like it's real estate he owns. This doesn't make sense because he does not own the hotel. I can't tell if he is joking all the time or dead serious all the time. He ignores us arguing about whether an elevator is a room until one of us says ghosts can only haunt rooms. He turns around and pins his eyes onto ours. This elevator is a room. I went to 100 Floors of Frights High School. I don't know how I just remembered this, but I am sure I went to high school in this hotel. What was our mascot? The pumpkins? The skeletons? The elevators? My parents didn't like me going to this hotel, but there was nowhere else to go. Remember when we used to call it 1,000 Years of Fright High School? Sometimes students would disappear. Sometimes the hotel would disappear. They called it fading. But when they demolished it, it stood itself back up again the next morning. I keep going to our class reunions. Every 5 years, more and more of us are ghosts. I remember the way my shoes clicked on the tiles in the lobby, the indoor swimming pool, too dark with only one light flickering. I remember on the roof, looking over the edge. David S. Pumpkins says I can call him Dave, but I won't. I don't believe certain words from certain mouths. An invitation to a spell I will inadvertently cast again. I would never say a name I hadn't fully researched. A clipped name moves too fast in the air. It slips through the gaps in my teeth before I can turn the key in the lock. I avoid saying his name completely, but I hear it echo in the shower. I hear it in the elevator right before the door opens. With my husband, I said the wrong name, which was the right name. Years ago, before all this, I overheard a man and a woman talking too loud before a movie. One of them said, "You can never reach your full potential unless people call you by your full name." I am not sure if they were there to help me or as a trap. And my last one is, my purse was only afraid 73 out of 100 floors. I'm not sure if all purses are psychic, but mine always knows what I will need. I have always needed more than I can carry in my hands. She glows in the dark like a flashlight. She has scissors, a bandage, but I have never filled her up with anything. She sighs and deflates when she's not on my shoulder. In the shower, my purse soaks my back. She never talked before, but now she won't stop talking. I asked her why this hotel was able to separate me from my husband, but not my purse. She said, "We don't need him." She said, "We are symbiotes." I don't put her on, she puts herself on me. On certain floors, she chatters. When she's afraid, she jingles like she's completely full of keys. Every floor seems equally dangerous to me. She won't tell me what scares her. My purse is leather, and in this hotel, she reminds me she is made of skin too. I ask her, "Are you a ghost?" "I was born the day I wrapped around your shoulder." "Where will we go when we leave here?" "We are never leaving here." "When did we get here?" "We have always been here." "Are we dead?" "I told you, we have finally just been born." Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Alan Tultus, and I've been part of Suppose for about 8 years, and I grew up in Philadelphia and spent most of my life in Philadelphia, so that made it quite easy to be part of Suppose, but I then moved to California, and the nice thing about Zoom is I can still participate. My new book, Mercy, explores 13 attributes of mercy through the eyes of Mercy herself. And here we find her trying to understand the 11th attribute, forgiving betrayal and rebellion. The big melt. After the big snow. Mid-morning. East side of house. Ice daggered. Dripped. Gleaming and transparent, it changed the sun's path while lessening itself, giving Mercy a lesson in forgiveness. She wanted to quiet iniquities the same way, shrink them down to size, a trifle, a grace note, an aside. Melt sin until the last shiver liquefied, dangling. Gravity would do the rest. Shrug them off, wet and harmless, onto the ground. I don't get a lot of snow and ice in Los Angeles, but I do get other things to write about. And in Pasadena, which is very close to where I live, we don't have pigeons and sparrows and things like that, but we do have huge flocks of green parrots. Pretty bird. We think of parrots caged, perched solo, mechanically shuffling side to side, heads bobbing, bowing nervously. Nothing like the ruffling gusts of feather-green dissonance that swarm the magnolia trees, dot the utility lines on warm afternoons. Some days I can't see them, but still hear their shrill confusion infiltrate my house. With the wild uproar these untamed things spew, they spread not a glimmer of gossip, start no rumors, defame not one soul with their utterances. No one has taught them a single word. Pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird. And when I was researching that poem, I did find out that pretty bird is the #1 phrase that people teach their birds to say. Palm Springs Pastoral. Salmon scaled and swimming, with pre-dawn and traces of dew, morning leapt up, gleamed and shimmered across the steep climb, laddering over time and hue, turning deep ruddy pink, like a belly, abundant and ripening. Late afternoon paused for 6 bighorn sheep to tuck their precise tiptoe legs under themselves, fusing with the mountain. Small birds called back and forth, breezing out for one last foray before the last rays flew from the world. They ruffled and fluffed themselves, settling in their nests, a tattered network of air, feather, and twig, their only cushion against the descending desert night. Though I had barely moved the entire day, I knew the time had. Long ago, or was it today, I might have prayed at times like this, but prayer barely ruffled my memory or shepherded my fluttering thoughts. I too needed a place to settle into before the gentle bruise of sunset extended across heaven. And I know it's been hard for a lot of people with the isolation and that comes with COVID, and but it hasn't affected me that much because I have important things to do. I wait for deliveries and track their arrival on my phone. I scroll through Instas and await new posts. I busy myself out of existence. Who has time for simple things like radishes early in the growing season? Grief takes time to germinate. Are there still wise men with late-season tomato foresight? Where are the sweet corn shamans? It's too much hassle to wait for silky tassels or worry about the shriveling disappointment of earworms. There's hardly time for one-click checkout or patience for 1 hour delivery. I can't even think about drawing a narrow groove in the damp and crumbly soil with my finger, then spacing out a line of pebbly seeds. If I got that far, would I have time to delicately brush an 1/8 inch of soil back over them, sprinkle handfuls of water to darken and wet the earth without washing them away? One day, my roots will wend through the dank rubble of dirt and get a grip. One day, I will plump into a red and spicy nugget. One day, I will become visible again. This last poem is an elegy for my father, who was a very practical man. An invention to make the world better. Weaned on want, nurtured on heartache, he knew what precisely this imperfect world needed. An eraser that never wore out. I watched him hunch over ledgers, striving to straighten the crooked or tally the missing. Count, recount, count again. The stale smell of sweat and stumble worn into dirty pink rubber shavings. At the edge of his worksheet, an amalgam of ever and craving to make things right accumulated. Turning his pencil over again, he worried the eraser down to its thin ferrule. A few cents discrepancy, sorrow, sin, all the same to him. Undoing whatever needed to be undone. A lifetime of loss poised to be scattered with a quick wave of his hand, imagining the nub, supple, pink, the paper, smooth, clean, gleaming. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucia Herman, and I'm very excited to be sharing in Poetry Community with you today. So thank you so much to everyone that made this happen and to all those tuning in. I am an artist and educator from Miami, Florida, and I'm obsessed with my sinking city. And I currently live and teach in Philadelphia. I have 5 poems tonight. My first one is called An Auditory Invitation, and the first line is actually stolen. So the first line comes from Ariel Francisco, so one of the poems in this book, which is an elegy to our city of Miami as well. So this is called An Auditory Invitation. Out all night to the awkward hour, musk of dance and smoke stickily clinging as the dew starts to burst. Did I leave the stupor behind me? Or is the soft thudding a cornea cone shift response to seeing more light again? Next steps seem dubious. Someone's rooster is up already. An ancient creature knows of directionality, his role in timekeeping the madrugada. Where do I amble on forth? Suddenly, the clinking of spoon to stir sweetened substance from beans of babble dust, longing constellation of ox and soil shared with tobacco leaf. That clinking sounds like a call to me. What would a neighbor think if a stranger padded up, asked, please, pour a little cafecito for me? We'll share in the break day, say thanks for another one. This second poem comes from an image of a day at Crandon Beach and is called An Afternoon at Crandon. Forked palm fronds barely block sun, canopy can't hide Caribbean. Tropical transcends latitude, SPF is matter of survival. A maze scowled burn shore, sand sticks and upsets whimpering, non-chancletad feet, swift sprint seek shadow. Breeze belies tranquility, dunes stand complicit, whispering sea grapes tell secrets of the ships that won't make it. Better to be elevated, inland for night of storm, unpredictable rise waters, flood is greed and time unkind, evacuation plans, bunker, sandbags, bottled water. Where does beauty turn belligerent? How do clouds gain velocity? And what do whipped droplets feel as they wash the sorrows, the freak off pains and unwanted, yet necessary, of a land that never showed grace anyway? This third poem actually was published by Moonstone Art Center in their new Hope 22 anthology. And it's good that it was this one because I tried writing another one that was not hopeful. So this is my hope poem. The apocalypse came to my block on a Tuesday when most folks still had their recycling out. The season had turned hot enough spring so the sound of swarming pestilence was confused for the hum of air conditioning machines. Managers at Whole Food, Giant, and Acme reported once more to the crowds outside their doors that the trucks had arrived empty. Bananas, oh, sweet, sweet plantains had died decades ago. Endangered, extinction, lists were redundant. No more berries or Bengals, cocoa or bees, peaches, puffins, or ASL signing chimpanzees. Then, suddenly, from basements, attics, parks, back alley libraries, on corners and coming in hordes down the streets were artists carrying craft, clutching paintbrushes, pouring words out of orifice, contraction in long O's, tappy knees, loose bodies, etches in concrete, tag up to dope beats, hair braid, snip sculpt, shaped play, sound play, drab cloth to regal view, needle point to next muse, and ever ready with onus of, here came lectores, with stories to tell. Birds knowing where it is safe to nest, not fighting to find home. A lonely leaf that fell before friends, and how everyone cheered on the descent. Mountains that moved over for siblings, slowly, with patience, what grace to make space. They told stories of death that didn't begin with unarmed, sleeping, or running away, of birth that was always blessed. This one came from a writing workshop, and it's in response to Ada Limon's ancestors. I come from ocean massaged under moonbeam, salt scattered in search of libertad, cachao beats and bongos played poorly after too many traguitos de ron. I come from paper documents stamped upon entry when the difference between using blue or black ink really mattered, a bewildered child. I come from language lost, transmuted, rearranged to make space for another. I come from a moment on an elevator in the 1970s where Puerto Rico and the suburbs of New Jersey meet, a not so subtle request for tutoring. I come from fear of not fulfilling potential, education as tethered to survival, and always grasp for something more. And this last poem, so this is New Poems for a New Year. So this last poem comes directly from the festivities and the holidays of December. And I end up writing Christmas poems every year. It's a love letter to Miami. And so this is also a love letter to Miami. This is a book that I was published in called Waterproof: Evidence of a Miami Worth Remembering. So super climate fatalist, just like what should be remembered when the city goes under. But it's out of love. So this one, the Three of Cups, is a tarot card. And so this poem is called, I pulled the Three of Cups on December 20th, and now I'm crying in community again. We play dominoes in the front yard, set up 2 tables, and passing cars ask, who's up? ¿Y quién está ganando? Tally, team up, strategize, folklore of an abuelo who used to know what everyone had at the table, card counting, but for fichas. A stranger gives another one a slice of pizza. Nochebuena is filled with generosity. We pass the day in cooking, intentionally expand mealtime. The pig is just a conversation piece. 2 hours in and we flip Pepita, too charred, but will probably taste fine. We fiesta, in spite and because of how hard it's been to be away from loved ones. Drink cervezas y ron, a patcher of sangria. We dance, move past mobility. An 87-year-old shakes her hips, holds hands to steady, giggle glows to feel beat, remembers her feet can be more than just swollen. We stand in circles, surround each other with and in space, casually negotiate terms like super spreader, the comfort of conversation, cacophony, laughter. We sit together. I am watching you eat, to the left of me, in front and beside me. Cuánta fortuna, the blessings, astounding. Thank you all.
I almost couldn't unmute myself. My name is George McDermott. I'm sort of the complement to Lucia. I moved from Philadelphia to Florida and currently live in Sarasota, which is the opposite coast from Miami and is not as endangered as Miami. Like Alan, as a result of that move, I am a Zoom supposer. I did it live until about 10 years ago, I guess. So I was really excited when I found out that they were making it available on Zoom and I could return. I have 5 poems I'm going to read. I saw that the theme was supposed to be new poems for the new year. I don't have any new poems, so I decided to go with newly published poems. Okay, the first one, which is pretty appropriate for this time of the year, is called Spring Training. And it's going to be in the Coastal Shelf Annual, which is going to be released sometime in the next month or so, I guess. Called Spring Training. Pitchers and catchers report today. No one is hurt. No one is slumping, and this is the year we've waited for, the year it all comes together. The top of the order will hit for average. The pitchers will all have winning records. The check will really be in the mail. Researchers will find a cure for cancer. Justice will shape the court's decisions. The sluggers will slug. The closer will close. Husbands and wives will love each other, and peace will prevail in the world. Pitchers and catchers report today. There's nothing for now that can't be dreamed. The next two poems are both in the current issue of Meat for Tea. That's spelled M-E-A-T for tea. It's volume 15, number 4. The magazine is published in somewhere in Western Massachusetts, and it's a pretty good magazine. First is called Cornucopia. So, we are the men, the ones who plow the earth and sow the grain and pray for harvest. Day after day, we practice creation, watching the sun and the sky.
Wait, George, you muted yourself for a sec. You just muted yourself. Just gotta unmute.
Thank you. We practice creation, watching the sun and the sky for omens of fertility, tilling and testing the soil, plowing and sowing. We never think to ask the women who keep their secrets hidden away, who can raise the sand and the soil to their lips and touch the humid mysteries of the ancient places, who carry the seasons, who measure their lives with the moon. Okay, continuing with women. This next one is called Broken Sonnet. It is a broken sonnet. It deteriorates at the end. Let's make a date right now, today, for the night of the day our marriage ends. Let's plan to go dancing. Let's give our bodies a chance to remember how well they fit together. No anger. Instead, let's spend our final moments recalling the scent of your hair against my cheek, the feel of my arm around your waist, the sound of our laughter in time with the music. Let's memorize the faces that once were the first and the last we saw every day. And then the taste of our lips at evening's end, a wistful kiss to say goodbye, not merely good night. Recalling another time, a softer time, where our hearts were whole, were close enough to rhyme. Next one is going to be published momentarily, I think, in the next issue of Notre Dame Review. It's a villanelle, but it has nothing to do with Italy or France. It has to do with Ireland. It's called Conqueror's Repose. And a little bit of an epigraph at the beginning to explain who Conqueror was. When Conqueror Macnessa, the legendary king of Ulster known for his extreme passions, was grievously wounded in ambush, his doctors advised him that he could yet live, but only for as long as he could remain calm and serene. He endured this unbearably passive life for 7 additional years. I study our heroes like specimens in jars, parsing their poems, dissecting deed after deed, but live the life prescribed and hide my scars. I suffer a life becalmed like Conqueror's, a pale repose that drains but does not bleed, and study our heroes like specimens in jars. I kneel to the English kings who conquered ours To a foreign God I neither know nor need, and live the life prescribed. I hide my scars.
George, you've done it again. The muting.
God. Sorry. I kneel to the English kings who conquered ours, to a foreign God I neither know nor need, and live the life prescribed. I hide my scars. My clouded life obscures the druid stars that once could truly light our way, that freed us from studying hero like specimens in jars. To bloom like Molly, to rise from coffins and bars as if Finnegan waked again. So much I concede, to live the life prescribed and hide my scars, yet yearn for fire, a widening gyre that chars the leech and frees the falcon to fly indeed. I study our heroes like specimens in jars, but I live the life prescribed. I hide my scars. Finally, it's in issue 10 of McQueen's Quinterly, which is, I think, still live right now. It was in October published. It's called Flyover. Those of you who are currently in the Zoom meetings will recognize it. It's called Flyover. These nightfall shadows erase perspective. Canyons and mesas look the same. I never thought I'd be this old. Never expected to live in times like these. Ahead, a shadow across the horizon like a black, devouring mouth from the sky. As a sliver of moon sets behind us, a fragment of gloom between crescent horns. Older than hope, darker than faith. Below, the glint of a gleaner's scythe in the headlights sweeping the darkened roads, harvesting minutes, hours, days from the clock. I never thought I'd live this long. Never thought I'd sleep without dreaming.
Hi, I'm Carol Bernstein. That was very strange how my Zoom frame just changed. I don't know what that was about, but now you can see the edge of my lovely banker's lamp for some reason. I don't know why I did that. I'm the author of 2 books from Hanging Loose Press. One is called Familiar, and the other one is Buried Alive, a To-Do List, which was published in 2019. This is the most recent book, Buried Alive, a To-Do List, and both books are available from Hanging Loose Press. I'm going to be reading 3 poems tonight. Just wanted to mention that the third one, which is called An Errand, has some adult content in it. So if you have any kids in the room with you, you may want to plan ahead for that. Okay. The poem I'm going to start with is called Burlington County, New Jersey COVID-19 Makeshift Megasite, April 19th, 2021. And it's basically about when we took my daughter to get her COVID vaccine last year, the place we ended up getting an appointment was a former Macy's department store. And all the stock had been taken out, but it was still very weird to be in there because you could see some remnants of the store, like some empty jewelry counters and some signage was still there. And it just was as if normal life had been swept away in a flash. Burlington County, New Jersey, COVID-19 makeshift megasite, April 19th, 2021. We are in Macy's. This is not Macy's. It was Macy's a couple of weeks ago, I think. There are soldiers here. Are we at war? We are not at war. The guardsmen help direct people. See the rubber chicken, one says, waving it by the throat in a beefy hand. Now look for the guy with the other rubber chicken. That's where you need to go. There are white sheets and clear sheets and dividers dividing dirty, clean, safe, unsafe. Receding rows of nurses behind masks, behind shields, behind stanchions. Odor of demolition. chrome skeletons of jewelry counters, metal folding chairs screeching on the floor covered with whitish dust. It stretches for miles, a patrician marble repetitive pattern. In the distance, fitting room. There is nothing for sale. Crystal flutes, acres of sequin dresses, a comforter for the guest room, neon orange and lime beaded flip-flops for the beach, platters rimmed with holly garlands, service for 12, silk neckties fanned in a rainbow, gift wrap, the children's department, luggage, a tiny perfume vial shaped like glittering wings. There were sample strips. You could dab one on your wrist, inhale the fleeting scent. I wrote this next poem after noticing the little arc representing sunrise and sunset that appears in the weather app on my phone. And it's a little thing that most people just kind of scroll past, and I mostly did, but I noticed it and I was momentarily blown away by the fact that I instantly understood what that represented and how that connects modern people with like every other people and civilization that has ever existed. I feel like I'm kind of incoherent when I talk about this poem, so I hope the poem conveys what I mean better than my description of it. A few possibly unfamiliar terms. Amaterasu is a Shinto deity. Nut is an ancient Egyptian goddess, and Ma'ariv is a Jewish prayer service. The ecliptic represented on the weather app. Almost unnoticeable among the flashing ads, a thin red arc bearing an orange asterisk or spark or daisy, presented in nothing but light, held in my hand. I know what this is, without thought, without effort, being a being on earth, of earth. The mind inside the computer, inside the phone, will move it through the day, little gear of heaven. The sun flaming in Philadelphia, Budapest, Kenya, Greenland, Mackinac, Jalisco, and firing my third floor window with its crystal on a ribbon I bought for $3 in college. It is Amaterasu drawn by the jeweled mirror, held back from eternal night by the Shiminawa. Newt, who swallowed the sun and gave birth to it in the morning, the orb trailing red tissue like clouds. It is a burned chariot. It is the sunflower turns on her god when he sets. The sun guide, the sung god, the round pelvis, the evening and the morning, the feast day, the fast day, which slows the sun to a crawl. More stories bedded in mud flats that glisten under daylight. It is Orthodox Jews at the airport in Detroit last week. 18 black birds turning as a flock turns at evening, being turned, being breathed, breathing Ma'ariv to the blinding glass at the appointed time. Let me rise and set these words down. When I was a kid, I sometimes had to do an embarrassing errand for my mother, which was to buy her a box of menstrual pads. This was in the days before you could order anything online, and there wasn't even self-checkout in stores. So whatever you were buying, you had to take it up to the register and deal with a person. And this poem is about an instance where that didn't go particularly well. An errand. Modest feminine napkins, super economy size, a box that could have held a small appliance, stained with dark pink blots of unrecognizable flora, chrysanthemums, overblown roses, autumn leaves, on dingy white cardboard, and emitting a smell like Glade air freshener. This was the most dreaded of all the errands. My mother was obese and had trouble walking places, so sometimes it had to be me. I vaguely understood what they were for. I knew it involved grown women and that it hurt, some sickening physical defect that had no cure and made me weak to think about and was supposed to happen to me sometime, but I didn't actually believe it. It was early Saturday morning and I was the only one in there. The cashier was different, younger, not the old man with thick glasses. I handed him the bills and he rang it up, my heart pounding a little. He met my eyes and grinned. Is it for you? Is it for you? Meaning, does blood come out of your vagina yet? Meaning, I know you have a vagina and I'm thinking about it right now. I can almost see it through your pants. Meaning, look at this kid's face. Wish I had my home movie camera. Meaning, if someone rapes you, could you get pregnant? Meaning, has your body begun to grow tits yet? And if so, should I put my hands on them? Meaning, I am so funny, I should go on Johnny Carson. Meaning, the reason I can say this is I am a man and a grown-up, and you are not, and I decide what is amusing. I froze and stared at the counter for an eternity. His large fist rested comfortably there, a little hair on the knuckles. I realized he was waiting for an answer. He was going to make me answer. So I choked out, for my mother. The smile turned satisfied, and still smiling, he slid the giant box into a discreet paper grocery bag so it could be our little secret. Later, I got really mad and told my mother. He didn't say that, she chuckled with a wave of her hand. He couldn't possibly have said that. Thank you very much.
I'm Ross Bender. I'll be reading two poems. The first is The Ballad of Bananas Loratadine. The second poem is Psycho in the Rain. Bananas Loratadine was an internet hoodlum. He fished on the dark side and hacked accounts. He made online fortunes mining digital currency, ran a Ponzi scheme too, but he blew it all on his floozies. Lived high on the hog, but was a friend to the poor. Sent turkeys at Christmas, served soup at homeless kitchens. Some say he could have been a contender, might have run for president with "Are you serious" on the Libertarian ticket. But another perspective, he was a bloodthirsty monster, gut shot his own grandma on St. Valentine's Day. Others say he was an enforcer for the Nova mob, surf riding the ticket that exploded. Perhaps the truth will never be revealed. The feds took him down in an online bust. They called it the Bitcoin massacre. And he was banned from all wikis by the apomorphine police. Nobody knows where his body may be buried. Digital bits blown across the metaverse. Yet, in some dark corners, in some temporary autonomous zones, old wise deadheads and psycho graybeards still sing his praises. Psycho in the Rain. An elegant address on Riverside Drive. Affordable then for a gaggle of grad students who, though not exactly penniless, had to watch their every penny. First floor, facing the park, with those high ceilings, spacious rooms with a narrow New York kitchen and one bathroom for 5. What fun to be a graduate student then in the 70s. Futures still looked bright, even psychedelic. Maybe even real jobs on the horizon. We loved each other as flower children did, although we're careful to keep our real lovers in other venues, less complication that way. George, the tall, slim Hungarian linguist. Architecture student Tom, whom we rarely saw, he was always in the studio past midnight. Laughing Pam from journalism, and I myself pursuing esoteric interests. The fifth room, cramped behind the kitchen, rotated. Always another renter who, for some reason, wasn't in the lease. It just worked out that way by house consensus. But we wanted someone who could cook. We ate well for penniless students, rotated coq au vin on Monday, vindaloo curry on Tuesday, then on Wednesday, spaghetti, Thursday, meatloaf or fish casserole. And we all took turns on the dishes, all with one glaring exception, Libby from the back room. She was a dancer, or aspired to dance. She could bake a dynamite quiche, but some errant parent had never taught her to do the dishes. And it kind of spoiled the household vibe. After too many weeks of dirty dishes piled in the sink on her washing night, we took action, piled them on her bed, thinking that would teach her. I'll be good, I promise, she exclaimed. And for a bit, the dishes got their proper washing on her night. Then back to dysfunction. Libby was in some sort of dance school. She wore a black leotard stretched out a lot around the apartment. Then one night, a massive thunderstorm rolled down along the Hudson. Thunders as of dwarves bowling at nine pins. Lightning bolts worthy of Zeus, angry sky deities. Then the downpour and Riverside Drive flooded to the curbs. And in the midst, as we peered through the deluge from barred front windows, we saw Libby prancing wildly in the street, like Astarte, then like Shakers a la Martha Graham in the rain. She astounded us. We all stood mesmerized till she came back in dripping, manic, waving her arms in nutty abandon. She stripped off her leotard, danced wild and nude for us in the apartment, then abruptly caught up, as if in sudden consciousness. She stopped, looked round at us and burst into tears. And Pam gathered her up and bundled her into the back room. Then a ponderous knocking at the door. It was the police, looking bored. We got a report of a psycho. Any psychos in here? No, I replied. No psychos in this apartment. Maybe upstairs? The policeman looked me over cynically. It was the first time I'd ever lied to a cop in person, though I'd never had much opportunity. They looked me directly in the eyes. Then one shook his head, the other cop yawned. The rain dripped off their slickers. Okay, buddy, but listen, anytime you got a problem with psychos, you let us know. Got it? They stomped back through the foyer to the squad car, dripping in the downpour on Riverside Drive like Dolly's Paris taxi. They revved their engines and roared off into the storm. Presently, Pam came out and made tea for Libby, and we all went back to our dictionaries. The next day, Libby came out and baked a dynamite quiche. But suddenly she gathered up all her things, departed quickly, and moved back in with her family in Queens.
So Tom,
Yeah.
it's your turn.
Okay, good. Good to see everyone and be together with you in cyberspace somewhere. I'm going to read two poems. The first one is a rough draft that I just wrote the other day because I didn't have anything new, so I thought I should, given the title of the reading, come up with something. And this is actually essentially a report on the past year or so during which I've been writing a novel. And the title of the poem is To Begin. And then in parentheses, writing the novel and discovering some things along the way. To begin, make no preparations. Has not the world already been confected and in a cowardly fashion debased? For it depends not from you, but from our parent, the world, the novel being a portable parent. You are merely helping your own parent to be born. Whether you set your novel in the 20th or 15th centuries, it is always of your time, just as the child perceives its time through the parent. No matter what the novel says, it always speaks faithfully of current realities. Doesn't the child always know better when the parent presents himself as courageous and wise? Our children always know us for what we really are. Just so does the novel know us through and through. You probably assumed you would be the parent of the novel, ushering it lovingly into being that it may be sold and bought. But the novel is giving you life, that you may no longer be a dead soul to be bought and sold in the marketplace, the currency exchange we cold-bloodedly reduce life to. And recently, to prove its point, the novel visited my life. Was that not one of my characters sipping coffee across the room from me at La Colombe the other day? And did I not feel the kind of love for her that one should feel toward this world, which too many of us have helped turn into a sad sniveling thing, reflective of our own fear? And must she really die so soon? Begin. It's not hard to know what to write. Does not the child know the parent far better than the parent will ever know the child? Begin without fear. It's easy. You can read your parent like a book. And the other poem, somewhat shorter, is based on a dream that I actually had when I was a kid. And that always stuck in my head, and I would think of it once in a while. So being a dream, it has some, let's say, unusual imagery. It's called vision version. The kindly eyes of the life-size painted plaster statue of St. Vincent swiveled in my direction as the white-habited nurse nuns suspended the infant me naked and upside down from the ornate golden stand from which had recently hung the bamboo cage of Pope Pius XII's canary, the photograph of which, perched obediently upon the Holy Father's forefinger, completed the decoration in the very clean, quiet infirmary, where no one spoke except my mother, who told the nuns to remove my eyes with their gleaming surgical instruments, which they efficiently did, whereupon my mother handed them the two oversized, ornate brass upholstery tacks, which were to take the place of my eyes, then abruptly left the room, abandoning me to my fate. But the nuns installed huge diamonds in my eye sockets instead, enabling me to see better than before, with a special kind of sight, the multifaceted gems refracting inhuman wavelengths of light from great distances. Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody. Loved hearing your poems.
I'm glad you read that one, Tom. I really, I love that one. The image with the diamonds, it's great.
Thank you.
So that's all of our reading. Everyone, thank you for watching us, and thank you to Kelly Writers House for hosting us. And we do this every year, so we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you soon, I hope. In person, hopefully.